Welcome back to our channel. My name is Max.
And I'm Maya.
And we're living.
Ouch, yeah.
If you've been following along our journey, you know that we moved to the countryside of Sweden 5 years ago now, which feels crazy.
We bought it 5 years ago.
We bought 5 years ago. We went to Mexico, we went to Canada, then we came back. So technically we've been here for like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
We have been documenting our life from renovating, traveling, just living it up on the countryside. And in today's video, it's not going to be a vlog.
So if you've been with us on my channel, on our channel, we want to address the elephant in the room, which is being broke. I had a video, I addressed it. You mentioned it briefly.
I will tell you, it's been a tough year. And with that experience, I've learned that when we're going into a new season, it looks like it's not going to be the same struggles anymore. I still want to keep that mentality of like being not poor, but like having less money.
But we never kind of sat down and candidly talked to you about it, about maybe a fuller picture and more specifically addressing comments like, it sounds like you're a single mother, Maya. How can you be with a man who is allowing this to happen, being broke? And I was just like, these are good conversations.
They are a really good conversation. And I think that I haven't intentionally like not wanting to address it. I think that the time and the place, I was waiting for the right moment to do it. And because we have been we've been doing renovations, we've been moving around. We basically have 2 homes now, and one it needs to be like, it's critically, we have a critical deadline on that.
Time crunch.
I don't know. I wonder where we start with this.
So let's start about, how does it feel to be broke?
Yeah, right in there.
How does it feel to be broke and being a man?
Yes.
And being a provider?
Okay, there's so
being
many
a
layers.
husband? There's so many layers.
Okay,
here.
how can I unfold all these layers in one video? I think
Right?
that it's gonna be a little surfacey, but maybe we can dive deeper in depth at another point. But let's start with like the things that you were saying, and I think that they're really important to address. I would say first of all that I think that ignorance was my first sort of like, I'm realizing now in this position we are now that I was very ignorant, that I didn't think that we were broke even though we were broke. What I mean with that is that I have never had any debts. I have never had like struggling to live paycheck to paycheck in that extent. And I'm talking about the stakes that are in my current life situation, which is being a father and a provider, you know, and a husband, and like having homes and stuff. Like I'm talking when I was, you know, out of college or university, I was by myself. I never stressed about, oh, I'm not going to make it to next month, which has been the case the past year, I would say, where it's like, how can I, what rock can I like, what can I literally like look underneath to get in order to survive for the next month?
What's the difference between back then and now?
Well, I think back then it was like I only had to worry about myself. Right. So it's like, first of all, it's an experience knowing what it means to have more expenses, more responsibilities, taking care of not just your own needs, but other needs too. And I'm talking about like personal needs, like life needs. Back then it was like, let's say that I lived in London, for instance, I lived by myself. I knew what my rent was. The rent was never extended. Like, and I'm talking about moving electricity bills, things getting broken down in the house, cars that need service and stuff. Like those are things that are unpredictable.
Right.
Like, whereas like back then it's like, it's almost like the rent is more or less the only thing.
You knew how much you had to make every month.
Yeah. And then you live in London. So like you can basically pick any cafe job. There's always work to do. There's always like, I can hustle.
There's always a job.
And I can be away. If I need to do a job 12 hours tomorrow or 18 hours the next day, I don't have a family to worry about. I can just do me in order to, you know, serve the current needs I was in. I think in that buzz of things changing, I wasn't aware how bad the situation was. Is what I'm trying to say with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you weren't aware.
Yeah, and then for those of you who are new to this channel, you might not know this, but there's an age gap between me and Maya.
Right.
And then when we first met, you were at the pinnacle of your career, so to speak, whereas I was like on my way up. And that has obviously been something that I haven't struggling, like it hasn't been an identity crisis for me, but it's been something that I've been wanting to work towards for change. Like I would like that to be more equal, or even like to the point where I can provide you with that safety and security that you have done for our family for such a long time. Even though we worked so much together, like you have been basically the one who are bringing in the jobs.
I want to say that like old Maya, like
Yeah.
And I even thank her because I'm just like, oh, she worked very hard for 10 plus years. And so this countryside life has been afforded because of
Yeah.
the effort that
Yeah.
she did.
Yeah. So moving to the countryside was really the perfect dynamic shift for us because it allowed me, even though might have been the breadwinner, it gave me responsibility to sort of like even out the circumstances because, the language barriers, the authorities, like having contact with people around, like just pulling networks in on the countryside. If you not know the culture, like even though Sweden are good at English, like you need to
There's a
know the culture
culture.
that is hard to like adapt to if you're a foreigner. So that was good for our dynamic, but it's also
Yeah. Can I just
yeah,
piggyback?
for sure, of course.
Because we are married, now the 12-year age gap is evened out because now I need you. Before
Exactly.
it was like, not that you needed me,
I didn't need you,
because it was like long distance.
but I also worked for you, which was also like, even though we worked as together,
Yeah.
like you were my boss, which is also maybe not the best.
Which is another reason why we started Max and Maya Living,
Yeah.
because on my channel, he was helping to film and edit, but I didn't like this, like,
No.
power. It was just like, I already am 12 years older than you.
Yeah.
And I already make more money. And now, like, you're my employee. And it didn't sit right. And so I suggested to Max, we start this channel. Because you're already, like, you're an actor. Now you're a filmmaker. Like, why not?
Yeah.
And so this channel, moving to Sweden, all of it leveled things out. But it also had not curveball, but it's change requires time to adjust.
Yeah. No, it does. And I think that with that, if I'm gonna go back, get back to the whole how it feels to be like the provider, is that I finally started to like get to like a really good point of like shifting even financially too, and then things hit the fan and it changed, and then so I've been struggling with that like stress as well of not being able to provide that I'm so eagerly would like to do and would have hoped for.
And it might not be as challenging in a city. A city would provide more like other opportunities that you could just pick up, like go get a job. Like that doesn't, well, one, it doesn't work with us because, sometimes the assignment is get a job 9 to 5. But you said something last night.
Well, yeah. So basically, because I am a workhorse, I really am.
Yes,
like I don't just like I like working.
That's
like you
why
give me a
part
task.
of why I fell in love with Max.
Well, you give me, even though I'm a creative and I technically work with what I love, I still, like, you give me the most simplest task that might be like, anyone can do this, I would do it to 100%. Like, that's something that I'm confident to say. So it got to a point where I was like, why don't I just like go for like get a normal job that society has been telling me to do so long anyway.
Yeah.
When if my if my creative capacities and my expertise, whatever, is not bringing the resource to our family, why don't I do what anyone else should do and just get a normal job? So I did actually open up that door, that avenue of going in there, like applying for
Yes,
jobs.
Max did apply for jobs. Actually.
Yeah, I applied for so many jobs, and the funny thing is, like, I went that direction, I went that route, and it didn't feel right. But I went against that. I went against what I was feeling. Like, I did not want to get a normal job because I knew that we have something built here. We have a community with you guys. We basically have a digital journal that we can work on, and it serves not so much money, and we'll get to that later too, but it serves like creative freedom. It serves actually like a digital memory for ourselves to like look back on. And it's also like a perfect environment and landscape to like shape your own creativity, like to challenge yourself. If I go to a normal job, then I will leave that. I know that because now I'm putting my things here. Anyway, I'm saying all this just to get to my point, which is that I did pursue these opportunities.
You did life according to like the comments. Go get a job.
And I got so many setbacks on that. Like I had like rude people not showing up to interviews. I had people like dragging me, like sending like work samples 3 or 4 times.
yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, fine,
Wasting
I'll
his
just
time.
yeah, and I just like, oh sure, I'll just do. I just kept saying yes because I knew that I knew the first assignment I got. I was like, okay, I'll do this. And then it's like, oh, can you do another
They
assignment?
kept like using his time, and he's a
Yeah.
husband and he's a father, and he has other things
it's like free work.
we could have been editing videos for our channel,
Yeah.
or like whatever, putting effort, energy into something else, and meanwhile getting a job requires energy and effort. That might be the assignment for some and for a season, but it wasn't the case.
Like God was like, don't. This is
No,
not
this
your
is not
journey.
for you.
So then I fell back on this channel here.
Right now, what we're doing, at least on this channel, it is more of, I constantly remind Max, like, we are just planting seeds.
Yeah.
There's a time to plant and there's a time to harvest. And you also were planting seeds into another business, which is videography,
Yeah.
doing weddings. So that did work out for Max.
Yeah.
But wedding season is more popular during the summers. So he was busy during the summers and winter
Yeah.
trying to get a job.
But it's a long process when you're doing it.
Takes
Like
time.
it takes time, and it's only until this summer, this season, when I'm actually like booked and busy. Before
Yeah.
that, it was like building portfolio, making networking, and it's hard also when you are broke to justify like putting time into something that don't pay you right away. So like what you were saying with like planting seeds is actually a really good point to this whole like going the 9 to 5 route. Is that yes, that might give you money on the payslip right away, but it might take you so much brain capacity, so much
Yes.
physical pain,
Yeah.
so much time from away from your family that you can pour into these sitting seeds. And it's hard when you're broke to think like further ahead, like because
Right.
you have the bills that needs to be paid. You might have to change the big invoices to installments, but maybe that is the little thing you have to do in order to get your dream together and the right opportunities that are right for you. So it might sound a little bit like pretentious, but I firmly believe that what I'm doing now is the right path that I'm
Yeah.
on, even though
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and we're like also thinking like, okay, we have this YouTube channel. What can we do
yeah.
with our creative abilities? So if you would like to chime in the comments and give us some actual creative support, we welcome that. So one idea that I had like over a year ago, and you brought it up recently, which is a children's book.
Yeah.
And so again, like these aren't like millionaire ideas.
No. Yeah. And
these are creative ideas that take advantage of your skill set, my skill set, and hopefully you might enjoy.
Yeah, and I think also like I want to just add another thing. I've
Yeah.
been talking so much, I'm sorry. But like I also think that these opportunities and these ideas came during this broke period of time too, which is also very exciting that even though I was pursuing these like other jobs, there was opportunities that would come this way. It was almost like as soon as I stepped into that alley, something else come, and I was like, even that was like a sign that, dude, you have something very powerful here,
Right.
and you're turning your back against it.
Max was looking for jobs, working on what he could do, which is wedding, because everyone's getting married. Maybe not everyone's spending money on.
That's also
That's the other. Sweden budgets are not the same as American budgets.
No, they're not.
Like, modest. Everything here is like very modest.
Yeah.
But I was putting in my efforts in this book. And again, the book is not the end, it's a jumping off point. So I have this book that I was putting in time and effort, which means I actually turned down brand deals, because if I'm focused on creating this video once a month, every month, then that's taking away.
But you're really good at that also. I have to just do a little insert that you are very good. I like you constantly have to remind me, like, look at the bigger picture, look further ahead. Like, don't think of it like don't go do that just because you need it now. So I really respect that with you. Even before you wrote this book, you would like turn down deals that didn't sit well with you, like morally perhaps, or like the time. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, we're broke. Take the deal. And you're like, I can't. And I think also it has a lot to do with your faith as well. Like you can, you know, you're grounded in your faith to the point where you feel comfortable doing those things, where I find it way more like, I don't know if it's a man thing too. Just like I if I don't like actively put every awakened minute to like put food on the table in this home, whether it's to any resource I can, like I can't just sit and wait for it. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that you're just waiting.
No,
But
it's
yeah.
different. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's like very insightful. And that's probably a bigger conversation to be had with like more men. Because I'm like, oh, I mean, that makes sense. But for me, it was literally just putting all my work into my faith. But faith isn't sitting back and waiting for things to happen. I was not doing that. Like, I literally, despite not having enough money, like it's always nice to have more, but when you have less, you have to think creatively. And one of the things that I did splurge on was an office space, like $200 a month, to be able to focus and write and show up writing. And that meant less time on videos, less time doing all the other things. And that's just how I am, and that's how I work. Other people can juggle and do multiple things at once. Kudos. Do what works for the skill set and gifts that you have. But that's what I was doing. And while writing this book and while working on that, I'm praying a lot, like praying a lot and doing all the things I can, like just to turn the ship around, and to the point where I'm just like, I have to step out on bold faith, make declarations, and say, God, come through. Because if you created us, if you knew us from the beginning, then what I'm requesting is nothing in the grand scheme of things. So then God came through with this inheritance from my mother.
Yeah.
And I didn't think of it as anything to be ashamed of, because it's like, this is a gift. Like, I'm so grateful. And then I made a video addressing like how I have friends. We have friends that have fathers that financially support them. And I would have this attitude of like, oh, must be nice. But now I'm in that boat of I have financial support.
Yeah.
And so even talking to other friends in Göteborg, like, I'm like, oh, where'd you get that? My dad. Where'd you get that? My dad. I'm just like, it's a good thing to have a father provide for your children. As parents, we want to be able to provide for Saga.
Course.
And this money that we got from my mother provided a home for, yes, us, but her granddaughter.
Yeah, and herself when she comes to Sweden. You know?
Yeah.
So
My mom couldn't stand at home.
There was questions like, how can you be broke and then all of a sudden you buy a home? I want to address that shortly too, because it's like, people, I understand like from the from the
it doesn't make sense.
point of view, like from the outside perspective. But mind you, before we got the inheritance, I applied for a loan from the bank and got denied. Like, boom, because they just look at the papers, they're like, no. Like, if this was 10 years ago in Sweden, you would get a loan by just telling, like, look at them with your blue eyes and be like, please, and they would like, yeah, approved.
No.
In that world, I'm just saying, like, it's like, actually, like, that's why when I was talking about I'm just saying, like, when I was talking to my dad about like loan, they're like, oh, it's fine because he took a loan 15 years ago.
Right.
And it's like, then it's almost like, if you just have a good relationship with the bank person, but because of the situation in the world and financial fears and stuff, they don't even look at a rental property as an asset for income. They look at that as an other expense for you, meaning that the calculation for the what you can pay is just increases, you know?
Yeah.
So we were denied that. So that's also very...
Twice.
Yeah, twice. And that's also very interesting that you get this heritage, or us, because we're married, like, right after I get denied the loan that I was so confident that I would get. So,
and the loan was applied to renovate our old home to make it bigger. And so when that door closed, I was like, it's okay, Max. It just wasn't supposed to be. So we couldn't renovate our home. And then you were frustrated because it's just like, what am I going to do? Like, our home is so small. We have a dry toilet. And and our guest room was in another building with no toilet. It was just, it's good. It's fine for us. We can tough it, but family and friends coming from North America, they're not about that life.
No. So what I was going to say with that is
Sorry.
that no, it's okay. But from an outside perspective, when you're looking in like, oh, they're broke, but they're buying a whole new home. And that is one of the reasons, the loan thing. Like, we tried and we got denied, and then we get gifted with this beautiful like opportunity to increase our family, like in terms of like where to live and stuff. And then I also want to say that the Swedish prices on the countryside, and I'm not like paid by like the
right,
Swedish
yeah.
embassy or anything to like attract people here, but it is incredibly cheaper.
It's dirt cheap,
Just
guys.
go on Hemnet.se and compare it to like North American standards, and you will realize how much
Why we
cheaper.
can, somebody made a comment like, read the room, guys. Now's not the time to be bragging about buying a home. One, we're not bragging. Two, we don't live where you live.
No.
We live on the countryside.
Yeah.
So when we take a look and read the room, there's nobody here.
Yeah, no, it's exactly. And daycare, like, I mean, we pay really high taxes in Sweden, which is not to be ignored, but we just don't have the same expenses. Like, this lifestyle that we have, like, if we lived in the city, we would never been able to even get to this point, because we would have been kicked out of our home right away.
We would have probably had
More
other
work
opportunities to pay, but also money doesn't guarantee that you're doing what you're supposed to do.
No.
Like, it requires a lot of discernment to see, like, is this my calling? Finances are a reward system, but sometimes those rewards are not leading you to where you're supposed to go.
No.
So even though somebody's dangling this check for, 6 figures in my face, and I'm like, is that in alignment with where I'm going? Because if it is, I will take the 6 figures. Please believe I will take the money if it's in alignment.
Yeah.
But if it's not, if it's a distraction and a detour, then no, I'm not taking it.
No.
I've taken, like, it's so funny because it's like I say no to the 6 figures and I say yes to these smaller things because I'm like, this is in alignment. I'm not
Yeah.
against money. I am all about being aligned with what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So after this entire year and a half of financial hardship and struggles, what have you learned?
Well, I've become very, very humble to expenses and like how to be smart with money. And I'm not talking about being stingy, but there is a tendency sometimes to like look at money as something like, oh, it's an illusion, but it's stuff, and it is to a degree. But there is power in just like resisting, and that comes with like when we have done fasting and stuff as well. Like that, they are connected. Like how you. Like, you don't have to buy that certain things. You don't have to buy that coffee. You don't have to do these things. So what my point was, like, now, especially when we live in the home, and I'm on this endeavor of like becoming more handy, for instance.
Right.
Like, that is something like I can do it myself, and don't think of that as a bad thing. Like, I can do that, even though if I have the money, I want to keep that mentality of like I can do certain things by myself. I can recycle old wood into new. I don't have to just hire someone, buy new stuff. Like, there's that like growth from that perspective of not having much to now having money again, to be like, okay, how can I keep that, let's say, poor mentality, even though I'm making an abundance of money per se.
Yeah, I like resourceful
Yeah,
thinking.
yeah, resourceful thinking. And I think also in relationship, like, how much respect I've got for like what tension it causes in a relationship with money.
Yeah.
Because I come from a divorced family. Like, my parents were divorced, and I remember like they had so many arguments growing up, and I would ask them what are they fighting about. Like, 5-year-old Max would ask them, what are you fighting about? And they would be like, oh, money and bills. And growing up, like as a teenager or like my early 20s, I was like scoffing at that idea, like, bills, that was just an excuse. They were probably fighting about something else, which they probably, that was just a part of it. But I understand now, like being married myself and have had money issues, how much tension it causes and what it requires to like, for you, like we were fighting about like, or arguing about, or tension was caused because of money. And then, it made us do more planning meetings. You created a group chat.
Okay, so part of that, so the money thing created tension, and we weren't seeing eye to eye. And then I was talking to our friend who we bought the home from, Kato and Anders, and they shared that they have family planning things, and they use tools like, I'm not endorsing, I'm not sponsored or anything, tools like Trello. So she introduced it to us, and I actually had tried it once. So we started it, and when we have meetings, it doesn't matter what app you're using, but just meeting, talking about the day ahead, the week ahead, something that it's embarrassing to say that we didn't, but we didn't. And because you were dealing with so many like Swedish authorities.
Yeah.
He gets all the bills, they're all in Swedish, and then he has this assumption that I should know. How can I know unless we sit down and talk about it?
Yeah.
So now that we were on track, sometimes we like life happens and then we start fighting more. It's just like, okay, we have to have our meetings. Let's sit down and meet and put this in writing so we can both see it. So that is a huge life hack, like evening, weekly meetings.
Yeah. What have you learned more than that?
This is where I'm like, the age thing comes in, because of like, I've been here before.
Yeah, true. You've had debts and stuff.
I do have that under my belt. I have been here before. This is not my first rodeo. I know what works, and if it worked for me before, I know it'll work for me again. And again, it boils back to my faith. Like every time I'm struggling, when I put my faith in God, He comes through, and I'm just like, why do I have to wait till I'm on my like burnt out tire to go to God as a spare tire? Like I'm so sick and tired of that relationship where I feel like I'm using. So now I'm at a point where I'm just like, yes, I can turn to God for help in my lows, but I can also, when I'm not broke, turn to God and not use Him as a spare tire.
Right.
That's
Or
what I
Santa
learned.
Claus.
Yeah, once a year. I think the biggest thing is the meetings, the communication. Because I don't know you inside out, and so when I'm beginning to have like, I don't want to fight, I have to like take into account, okay, is this a right time to bring this up? Max has X, Y, and Z on his plate. So just being aware.
Yeah.
Reading the room.
Yeah, it's a tough balance, and it's been a lesson, and that's the beauty of being married as well, that you share the experience more or less almost every time. It's like we're in the same.
Yeah, so that's a little bit more. There's a lot that we're not addressing, we're not talking about. It's YouTube.
Yeah.
It's a 20-something minute video. So let us know in the comments where you're at on your journey with your finances, and how that's impacting your faith. Where has that led to?
Yeah.
I have found that it leads to creativity.
Yes.
Pre all of this stuff, I was a frugal artist.
Yeah.
I had my blog, Frugal Artist, but creative thinking comes from working with limited means. So
Yes.
I'm so grateful when I'm broke. I'm so grateful when I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm grateful through it all, because I know it's a season and it will
Yeah.
pass. Thank you so much. Make sure you're subscribed to our channel, turn the notifications on, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.